Mr. Mischief, a spot of trouble. Mr. Mischief woke up and groaned. He did not feel well. In fact, he felt decidedly unwell. He got up and went to the bathroom to look at himself in the mirror. He was covered in spots. So he made an appointment with Dr. Makewell. "You've got measles," said the doctor, "and the best thing you can do is go home to bed and stay there for a week." Mr. Mischief's face fell. A whole week in bed? No mischief for a whole week? Mr. Mischief groaned for the second time that day. "And don't forget," said Dr. Makewell as Mr. Mischief was leaving, "measles are very catching." Mr. Mischief closed the door, and then he grinned. A very mischievous grin, the sort of grin that meant he was about to get up to no good. Before he went home, Mr. Mischief popped into the hardware shop and bought a pot of yellow paint. Then he painted over all his spots before paying Mr. Happy a visit. He didn't stay long, just long enough. Long enough, thought Mr. Mischief as he walked home, to give Mr. Happy the measles. When he got home, he went to bed and lay there chuckling to himself. What a nasty person he is. All the next day he lay in bed and thought about the trick he had played on Mr. Happy. And he thought if Mr. Happy had the measles, then Mr. Tickle might catch them from Mr. Happy. Mr. Mischief chuckled at the thought of Mr. Tickle with spots all over his long arms. And Mr. Nosy might catch the measles from Mr. Tickle. And he chuckled at the thought of Mr. Nosy with a spotty nose. And he chuckled at the thought of Mr. Tall with spotty legs. And Mr. Wrong, who would probably have blue spots because he gets everything wrong. And little Miss Tiny would only have room for one spot on her body. "This will keep me happy all week long," chuckled Mr. Mischief to himself. Just then there was a knock at the door. Mr. Mischief struggled out of bed and answered it. "Hello," said Mr. Happy. "I heard you had the measles, so I thought I'd come round and cheer you up. Here, I bought you these." Mr. Happy gave Mr. Mischief a bunch of grapes. Mr. Mischief looked at Mr. Happy, but as hard as he looked, he couldn't see any spots. Not one. "Aren't you afraid of catching the measles from me?" stammered Mr. Mischief. "Of course not," said Mr. Happy. "I've already had them, and as you know, you can only get the measles once." Mr. Mischief's face fell, and he groaned again. "What's wrong?" asked Mr. Happy. "Don't you like grapes?"